The silence was deafening. 13-year-old Emma Richardson sat in the back corner of Lincoln Middle School's cafeteria, her designer backpack clutched against her chest like armor, watching her classmates laugh and chatter around tables she'd never been invited to join. 3 months had passed since her father's company went public, catapulting the Richardson family from comfortable middle class to headline-making millionaires overnight. 3 months since Emma had spoken a single word at school. It wasn't that she couldn't speak. The words were all there, trapped behind walls of anxiety, and the suffocating weight of suddenly being different. Every whispered conversation seemed to pause when she walked by. Every friendly gesture felt calculated, tainted by the knowledge of her family's newfound wealth. The girl who once loved participating in class discussions now sat mute, invisible despite being the most talked-about student in school. Her father, David Richardson, CEO of TechFlow Solutions, had tried everything. Private tutors, therapists, even offers to transfer her to the most prestigious private schools in the state. But Emma refused them all with the same stubborn silence that had become her trademark. The only words she'd spoken in weeks were whispered to her parents at bedtime. "I just want to be normal again." Mrs. Sarah Chen noticed Emma on her very first day at Lincoln Middle School, not because of the expensive clothes or the whispered rumors about the millionaire's daughter, but because of the profound sadness in the girl's eyes, a sadness Sarah recognized all too well. At 52, Sarah was starting over in more ways than one. After 20 years of teaching at an affluent suburban school, budget cuts had eliminated her position. Lincoln Middle School, located in one of the city's most challenging neighborhoods, was her lifeline, a last chance to continue doing what she loved while making ends meet in a cramped studio apartment. Sarah's own children were grown, scattered across the country, building their own lives. Her husband had passed away 2 years earlier, leaving her with medical bills that had drained their savings. The irony wasn't lost on her. Here she was, struggling to pay rent assigned to help a child whose father could buy the entire school district without blinking. But when Sarah looked at Emma, she didn't see wealth or privilege. She saw a 13-year-old girl drowning in isolation, desperately needing someone to throw her a lifeline. The other teachers had given up trying to engage Emma in class. "What's the point?" they'd whisper in the faculty lounge. "She'll be gone to some fancy private school soon enough." But Sarah saw something different in Emma's silence, not defiance or arrogance, but fear. The same fear she'd felt walking into Lincoln for the first time, wondering if she'd be accepted, if she'd fit in, if anyone would see past her circumstances to who she really was. Sarah's breakthrough came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. She'd stayed late to clean her classroom, a habit born from years of caring for spaces that weren't truly hers. When she noticed Emma still sitting at her desk long after the final bell, the girl's head was down, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Instead of offering empty words of comfort, Sarah simply sat down beside her and began grading papers, her quiet presence saying what words could not: "You're not alone." For 20 minutes, they sat in comfortable silence. Finally, Emma whispered so softly, Sarah almost missed it, "They only want to be my friend because of the money." Sarah set down her red pen and turned to face Emma fully. "You know," she said gently, "I've been teaching for 21 years, and I've learned, that the most important conversations happen when we're brave enough to be vulnerable. Would you like to help me with something?" What Sarah proposed was unprecedented. She asked Emma to help her start a peer tutoring program, not as the wealthy student doing charity work, but as someone who understood what it felt like to be on the outside looking in. "These kids," Sarah explained, gesturing toward the empty desks around them, "they're struggling with more than just math and reading. They're fighting battles at home, dealing with parents who work 3 jobs, siblings they have to take care of, hunger they're too proud to admit. They don't need pity, they need someone who understands feeling different, feeling isolated." Emma's eyes widened. For the first time in months, someone was asking her to use her difference as strength, rather than hiding it as weakness. The transformation didn't happen overnight. It began with Emma silently, organizing supplies while Sarah worked with struggling students. After school, slowly she started passing notes with encouragement, then whispering answers when students were stuck. The day Emma finally spoke aloud to help Marcus, a 7th grader whose father had been deported and whose mother worked nights was the day. Everything changed. The denominator stays the same. When you add fractions, Emma said quietly, her voice rusty from disuse. Marcus looked up surprised, not by her wealth, but by her kindness. Like this, she continued drawing the problem out. Carefully, I used to get this wrong all the time, too. Word spread quickly through the school, but not in the way. Emma had feared students didn't see the millionaire's daughter anymore. They saw the girl who stayed after school to help kids who'd been written off by the system, who brought in her own supplies when Sarah's budget ran short, who listened without judgment when they shared their struggles. The program grew from 5 students to 15, then 30. Emma found her voice by using it to lift others. She organized study groups, created resource guides, and even convinced her father to donate computers to the school, not through grand gestures and press releases, but through quiet conversations about kids who needed a chance. The climax came during the school's annual talent show. For years, Lincoln's talent show had been a poorly attended afterthought, but Sarah and Emma had transformed it into a celebration of student achievements. Emma had been scheduled to introduce the acts, a role she'd accepted with trembling hands when disaster struck. The sound system failed completely, just as the auditorium filled with families. Standing on that dark stage, holding a broken microphone, Emma felt the familiar panic rising. Every eye in the auditorium was on her, waiting, judging. The old Emma would have fled. But then she saw Sarah in the wings, not with pity, but with complete confidence in who Emma had become. She saw Marcus and the other students she'd tutored looking at her with hope, not expectation. Emma set down the microphone and stepped forward. Her voice, clear and strong, carried across the silent auditorium. My name is Emma Richardson, and I want to tell you about the most amazing people I know. For the next 10 minutes, without notes or preparation, Emma spoke from her heart. She told the audience about Marcus, who solved complex equations while worrying about his mother working double shifts, about Aisha, who wrote beautiful poetry while caring for 3 younger siblings, about Diego, who could fix any computer but couldn't afford internet at home. She spoke about Mrs. Chen, who spent her own money on supplies and her own time making sure no student was left behind. We're not defined by what we have or don't have, Emma said, her voice growing stronger with each word. We're defined by how we lift each other up. Tonight, you're going to see talents that shine brighter than any spotlight, dreams that soar higher than any stage. These aren't just my classmates, they're my heroes. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes, but more importantly, in that moment, Emma realized she'd found something worth more than all her father's wealth. Her voice, her purpose, and her place in a community that valued her not for what she had, but for who she'd chosen to become. 6 months later, the peer tutoring program had been implemented district-wide. Emma still attended Lincoln Middle School, not because she had to, but because she'd found her home there. Sarah had been promoted to department head, her innovative programs garnering attention from education officials across the state. But the real victory was smaller and more profound. Every day after the final bell, in a classroom filled with laughter and learning, a teacher and her students proved that the greatest wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the connections we build and the lives we touch. Emma Richardson had learned that being different wasn't a burden to bear. It was a gift to share. And in the quiet moments when Sarah watched, Emma patiently explaining a concept to a struggling student, she was reminded of why she'd become a teacher in the first place. Not to fill young minds with facts, but to help young hearts discover their power to change the world, one act of kindness at a time.